The floors, walls, ceiling, and the built-in closets are done. So what else is there to do to bring this whole bedroom makeover together? Well, in this video, I will share with you how I am furnishing and decorating this space to make sure I meet both our functional needs and I create that style and ambience of a cozy and calming space using layers of colors, textures, and lighting, all trying to use as much thrifted material as possible. I will also bring you along as I DIY a headboard for our bed, create these paper lanterns that bring in some soft lighting to the space, and as I refresh a secondhand carpet that cannot go in the washer. Because even if thrifting is great for both the wallet, the planet, and to be honest, the styles as well, no one really wants a gross carpet in their home. So let's make sure we fix that as well as everything else to bring this room together. If you are new here, my name is Linnea and I'm an architect currently on a quest to renovate 11 homes to see if I can build a sustainable real estate business. So come along. In any interior design, ensuring that you meet both the functional needs of the users while working with layers of colors, lights, and textures to create that atmosphere that is desired for the space is essential. And this is also the starting point of all of my designs. So if we look at this space in particular, the functional needs that my husband and I have is simply to sleep. And we also use this space to get dressed. So far, we have actually already built a full wall closet that can fit all of our clothes, but we still don't have a good bed and we still don't have a mirror and lighting, which are things we really like to have when we get dressed and obviously when we sleep. And if we then move on to look at how to build that desired atmosphere for the space, the aim in this particular bedroom is to create a cozy and calming feeling. This is both to make sure that we can sleep well at night and that when we get dressed, change clothes between activities, that we get reminded to maybe pause and relax, because both me and my husband tend to maybe not be in our calmest mindset when we're stressing between activities getting changed. So everything in this space will try to focus on calming coziness. And in terms of colors, this will actually be my primary guide in this design, and I will use the deep blues. The walls and the ceiling are already painted in these colors. I will bring in a lot of green elements and a lot of neutral colors such as wood, metals, and stone. And all of these colors I've chosen, well, because we like them, but primarily actually because they have properties that help us, if we look at color psychology, to feel more relaxed. So making these the central part of my design was a pretty easy choice in this case. But to make sure these colors don't become too cold, I will work a lot with warm and soft lighting in the space, still making sure I have that kind of task lighting for getting dressed. And I will also make sure that I bring in different textures in the different elements that I bring in these colors, so that we have this constant layering that we're after. And bringing it all together, this is the mood board that I've been working with. And if you want an even more detailed explanation of how I've designed this space, both why I made it smaller, why I built this closet to wrap around this door, go and watch this video where I give you the full design guide of the entire space from start to finish. But let's move on by starting with all the green elements that I'm bringing in. The largest object in this room is no doubt going to be the bed. And we had this gray metal frame since before and it works really well. But the headboard has these huge gaps and you just fall through them and is definitely needing an upgrade. So I decided that I was going to DIY a new headboard that would have a design of 3 tall panels, creating vertical lines that can draw your eyesight upwards. And altogether making this an even bigger statement piece in the room. And to build this, I use MDF, 4cm thick foam, furniture stopper, and some thrifted green bed linen that I thought would be great color to add into this space. So to build this, I first got all the MDF pieces cut to size at the hardware store, and then my first actual task was to pre-drill holes so that I could later put hooks on and hang the headboard onto the metal frame. Then I cut and stapled the foam to the panels, leaving the bottom section foam free so that I could later overlap the headboard with the metal bed frame. Then it was time to layer and staple the fabric and stopper together, folding the corners very neatly for that clean look. And I stapled and put these two layers on together because you can't pull the fabric stopper or it will rip, but you can pull the fabric. And once all three panels were upholstered, I joined them using metal plates to create the appearance of one solid headboard. Attaching the hooks through multiple layers was the hardest part, but trimming excess fabric was the solution, and it really helped me to get through and finally have all the hooks in place ready for the headboard to be hung. And finally, I hung it to the frame and I could not be happier with the result. And actually, it cost a lot less than buying one from the store. This project only cost me 1,100 Swedish krona, and when I've been looking at equivalent headboards, they cost between 2,600 krona and up to 8,000 krona, and I'm sure you could get even more expensive ones. I'm very happy with both having the opportunity to save some money, but obviously primarily I really love the look. The second major green element in this room was going to be the carpet that I would put underneath the bed. And this carpet I found at IKEA's circular store, so it's a secondhand piece that previously has been a display X in the store. So it's in really good condition actually, but it's a little bit dirty. Since it's a wool carpet, I wasn't able to wash it, so I decided to clean it using baking soda. And if you haven't done this before, what you need to do is first to vacuum the carpet thoroughly. I made sure that I vacuumed on both sides. Then you sprinkle the baking soda all over the carpet. And if there are any major stains, you can also spray a bit of water in these parts, and then you let it sit for several hours, ideally overnight. What happens then is that the baking soda will absorb dirt and oil from the carpet. So when you do the final vacuum afterwards, you will then remove all of this dirt. It's a great trick if you're not able to wash your carpet, and it really gives that fresh feel again. So once it was clean, I installed it in the room and used a rug pad in those corners that I knew would be a little bit more slippery than others. The third major green element in this room was going to be the curtains. And these curtains that we had picked out were previously a showroom display X for the store Nordic Knots. So they were in great conditions, but they were way too long. So to be able to install them, I first needed to trim them at the end. After trimming them to the right length, I tailored them, folded it twice to give that really elegant look at the bottom. Once done, we added curtain hooks and did a big fold, which helped the panels gather more neatly and hang with a structured yet elegant look. And here I definitely needed Joachim's help to get everything hung because I'm not that tall, and it's definitely easier if you have a little bit more of height to work with. And of course, for the final polish, I gave them a thorough steam to smooth out any creases and let the fabric drape beautifully and add that softness to the room. We're now onto the final green element that I was going to bring in, and this is obviously all the plants. And in this case, I picked out 3 different types of plants that are in different sizes and different shapes to add some additional textures and layering in the space. I decided to use neutral colored pots for all the plants that I thrifted in my local store. However, one of the plants that I found was this stark white color. So I decided to try out the viral baking soda paint trick. And if you haven't seen that in your Instagram feed or somewhere else, this is how it goes. You start by simply adding baking soda into your paint until it forms a thick paste-like texture. As you apply it, the baking soda creates a beautiful matte finish with subtle textures, almost like a ceramic glaze. I used leftover paint from our office, and from what I've seen, just about any paints will do. It's a simple DIY, but it adds so much character and warmth, exactly what I wanted the plants to bring in to the room. As we move on to the blue colors in the space, the most obvious and largest blue piece are the walls and the ceiling that I painted since before. And I actually did a whole video where I share all my tricks to get a really nice and smooth luxury looking finish for your walls and ceilings using as little money as possible. And I'll link that video in the description below if you're curious of how to do that. And the wall color that I chose is called Icy Blue by Jotun, and the ceiling color is also a Jotun color that is called Waterfall. So to then continue the blue color palette into the space, I decided to bring in a couple of carefully chosen textiles, starting with these dark blue pillows in a more glossy finish, and then adding at the end of the bed a slightly thicker woven blanket that has a different texture than the pillows. The rest of the bed linen I decided to keep neutral, primarily to add more contrast into the space so that not everything in the room ends up being these dark blue and dark green colors. And when you look at the bed fully made, you can really see the effect of color layering. It starts with the deep blue walls, followed by the green headboard, then come the beige pillows layered with the blue ones on top, connecting back to the blue blanket at the foot of the bed. The blanket then leads your eyes straight down to the green carpet on the floor. And I think in general, working and mixing different colors and textiles in your bed is a great starting point to really practice what this is. It's easy and it's relatively cheap to make changes, and I would really encourage anyone interested in learning more about layering colors and textures to start experimenting with your bed, how it sits against the wall and the floor. The final and last pieces where I brought in the color blue was, first of all, in this beautiful photograph that our really good friend Robin has been taking of Joachim surfing, and also in Joachim's bedside table lights. This light has a subtle blue color to the base, and I think both this photography and adding some of that slight blue nuance in the light are really nice, but not so in-your-face ways of adding more of blue, in this case color, to the color palettes of the room. And I think in general, working with art to add different colors intentionally can be really nice, but obviously art is art, and first of all you need to find and choose art pieces that you love. And we reached our final color group, the neutral colors. And I already talked about how I added this into the pots and the bedding, but also actually how I added it into the built-in wardrobe. This is the main neutral colored element in the space, and it also brings in a new texture, that slightly more raw wooden texture. And it sits as a nice contrast if you compare it to the silky texture of the bed linen or the very smooth fabric of the curtains. But this is not the only place where I added wood, because wood is something that I brought in a couple of different places. The second place was this gorgeous big wooden mirror that we hung in a convenient place so that we could easily use it when getting dressed. And I also added it into these bedside tables. We had these bedside tables since before, and I think they worked really well in this space as they are very deep but slim. And as you all already know, this is not a very big space, and to then work with quite slim but deep bedside tables can really make them still feel like more substantial pieces without them being too overwhelmingly wide or bulky in the space. And the last place is actually our door, and this we finished in a more teak-like color, similar to the mirror, as this is also the same finish that we gave to our door in our office. And I think it's really nice when you tie all the doors in your home or your apartment into one another. And the final natural colored element of the space was going to be these paper lanterns. And the aim here was really to bring in a very soft and warm lighting to the space that can help bring out the warmth in the blue and the green colors. And we were very inspired by Japanese lanterns and decided to try to make our own versions for this space. So you start by forming a circle of wire. We used both a thick and a thin wire to make this circle. Then we attached the light bulb that we had attached to this jute cord onto the metal wire. And here it's important that you make sure that the light bulb will hang quite low down into the finished lantern. So you need to decide how tall you want your paper lantern to be before you decide the height of where your light bulb will hang. Afterwards, it's time to make the actual lantern shape. This is simply just creating a cylinder that you fold into a rectangle at the bottom, and then you cut little pieces at the top so that you can fold it over the metal. We used a type of paper glue to just glue everything together, and we decided to use Japanese calligraphy paper because it lets through a lot of light while it's still actually quite structurally sound and doesn't just crack and rip very easily. We decided to make all 3 paper lanterns different sizes, and when they were all done, we hung them using these clear cord hooks, and then we looped these jute cords so that we get this kind of swag effect. And this result, well, I think it really added this soft ambient lighting that we were going for. And when you look at it, it actually almost feels like these are lanterns that might float away into the ceiling. But to contrast the very, very soft lighting, we still needed to make sure we added, let's call it more task-specific lighting for when we need to get dressed and it's, for example, very dark outside. So to do this, we added these black spotlights that we could then also point at different parts of the room and really help to add more of a strong light to the space. And now it was finally time to add the last little final touches to the space. So I added some scented candles, a nice tea line on a piece of stone. I added this wooden monkey for some playfulness and some dried flowers to really also bring a last natural element into the space. And this is all that I wanted to add before I can show you the final reveal of this entire space. I'm so happy with how it turned out. I stop every time I go to bed and just feel so grateful for having this space to go to bed in. So if you're ready, here's the final reveal. This was our final video for our bedroom makeover. So in the next video, we are starting to demolish the walls between our living room and kitchen because the next big project is the living room and in its connection, the kitchen. So if you don't want to miss out how we transform these spaces, make sure you subscribe to my channel. And if you like the result of our bedroom, do give this video a thumbs up, and I really look forward to see you in the next one.